I am granting Wanda Nielsen temporary use of the house until the children graduate from high school. Mr. Nielsen will continue to make all mortgage and utility payments on the house. She will also receive half the value of the business her husband owns. Ms. Nielsen will keep her vehicle, and Mr. Nielsen will continue the payments for that vehicle. I am also granting Mrs. Nielsen 60% of all assets, including all bank accounts, investments, and retirement accounts. Furthermore, I am granting primary custody of the children to Mrs. Nielsen. Mr. Nielsen will have visitation according to the standard protocols with 2 consecutive weeks during the summer and every other weekend. Child support will be $750 per month per child for a total of $1,500 per month. Since Mrs. Nielsen has not worked outside of the home for the last 5 years, I am also providing her with maintenance in the amount of $2,000 per month. The divorce will be finalized in 90 days unless Mr. Nielsen withdraws the petition. With that, the Judge Marie Matthews banged her gavel to end the proceedings. She was just beginning to stand when I uttered the single word that led to changes that would dominate the next several months of my life. No. Judge Matthews froze in mid-stance. Her head swiveled so fast to look at me that I'm surprised her neck didn't snap off. She had a look of disbelief on her face that was quite startling. It was as if she simply couldn't believe that someone had the audacity to state that word in her presence. Slowly, she reversed her movements and came back to rest in her chair. As she was moving, her features changed from shock to anger. Once she had regained her former position, the stern glare she aimed at me would easily have frozen water on the surface of the sun. To say that she was angry would be a massive understatement. "Excuse me?" she challenged. I'm not sure what is difficult to understand. Are confused with the N or the O. If that word is so difficult for you to understand, I would gladly give you a definition of it. I replied, I'm not stupid, I know full well what is about to happen. The thing is, I really don't care. I had actually planned for this. The next few minutes were going to be extremely entertaining for me. I will give you 1 minute to apologize, or I will cite you for contempt of court. Well, at least you will have made one correct ruling today. Then, I have nothing but contempt for this unfair situation you are creating here. I spoke. My lawyer was whispering harshly in my ear as he began fumbling through his briefcase. I wondered if he was searching for something to silence me. In that case, let's see how much contempt you have after spending 30 days in jail. She sneered as she banged her gavel again. Wow. I didn't realize that we had been transported to Australia. We must have been, though, because of all the kangaroos in here. My lawyer was really becoming irritating as he was almost yelling at me to quiet down and trying to put his hand over my mouth. 60 days. Care to try for more? You know, Your Honor, I truly believe that if you had a happier personal life, you wouldn't be so difficult. That being said, why don't you take this? I held up my right hand with the middle finger extended, and shove it up your closed-off body, while this extending my left hand similarly to my right goes up your uptight rear end. Then you can experience something enjoyable that might actually make you less of the bitter and angry person you are. The way I see it, you are in more dire need of a change of perspective than anyone in history. Oh my gosh, I really thought that someone would be calling for help about that time. I figure one of two things were about to happen. Either she was about to have a stroke or her head was going to explode. I was actually surprised that the steam coming out of her ears wasn't visible. I didn't think that it was even possible for someone's face to turn that shade of red. Death glares were being shot into me from her eyes. Yes, she was extremely angry. 90 days. I swear her voice was extremely fierce. Fortunately for my lawyer, that's when the bailiffs took hold of me. He had such a worried look on his face that I felt sorry for him. Everyone in the courtroom was shocked when I simply couldn't hold it in any longer and began laughing hysterically. That probably explains the visits by the psychologist I had in lockup over the next couple of weeks. The letter from my lawyer's law firm the next day stating that they were dropping me as a client was not a surprise. So, you are probably wondering what all that was about. Perhaps a little background is in order. My name is Michael Nielsen. I'm currently 31 years old. I was born to a very nice middle-class couple in the heartland of America. I was raised on traditional values where there was a strong sense of right and wrong. You respected those that deserved respect. You didn't cheat. When you gave your word, it meant something. Work hard, be generous with what you have, and live up to your values. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Of course, most people never think about the flip side to that. Do unto others as they have done unto you. The honorable thing to do is to turn the other cheek. Unfortunately, I have never been good at that. I've always had what has been described as an extreme stubborn streak. Combine that with my sense of justice. Well, it sometimes got kind of messy. When I made up my mind that someone had done me wrong and set a course of action to deal with it, nothing could change my path. There was one time in high school when I was going out with Cheryl Haskins. We had been dating for a couple of months by this time. We had an argument about something that I don't even remember what it was about. Anyway, words were said and we broke up. I put that in quotes because it was kind of understood that it was only temporary, and we would apologize to each other a couple of days later and get back together. It wasn't the first time that had happened. We would just use the weekend to cool off and make up on Monday. Unfortunately, I happened to be walking past the theater Saturday evening and saw my cousin Harold taking Cheryl into the theater. Two things here: Harold and I were more like brothers than cousins. We were the same age and had been practically inseparable for as long as I can remember. His family lived on the same block as me, and we grew up together. Second, I knew that he also liked Cheryl. He knew that we had broken up, but he also knew that we would probably get back together after the weekend. Friends simply don't do that to each other. From that moment on, he was dead to me. When Cheryl tried to talk to me on Monday, I simply refused to even acknowledge her presence. At church on Sunday, Harold came up to me and tried to talk. I simply stared at him without saying a word. When he finished talking, I simply turned around and walked away. His family came over for Sunday dinner. I ignored him. He tried to play video games with me. I simply stopped playing and went to my room. Our parents tried several times to get me to talk to him, but I refused every time. Even a year later, after I actually stole his girlfriend from him, I still refused to have anything to do with him. Oh, I did fight him when he confronted me about stealing his girlfriend, but that was it. He sent me an invitation to his wedding years later. I ignored it. When I married Wanda, every member of my extended family got an invitation except him. Okay, so I'm a bit of a jerk and hold a grudge. The thing is, when someone does me wrong, I don't forgive unless it was an honest mistake. What Harold and Cheryl did was intentional. Right now, a lot of you are thinking that I'm a jerk. If that's the case, let me annoy you a bit more. I firmly believe that you shouldn't do the wrong thing if you can't face the consequences. If you make stupid choices, you should deal with the results of your actions. If you drink and drive and get caught, expect to lose your license for a while, pay higher insurance, and perform community service or whatever else is involved. If your job depends on you driving, you lose your job. So I worked hard through high school and got pretty good grades. I got some nice scholarships and went to college. I did well with the ladies and still kept my grades up. I was always on the better looking side, and I worked to stay healthy. Yeah, I got into fights in high school because of my beliefs. I won more than I lost. Still, I was in good shape, and it seemed that women found me attractive. I graduated with an economics degree and an accounting minor. I went on to get my MBA, then got a decent job at a large company making good money. Being single and not having many bills allowed me to play the stock market. I found out that I had a knack for it and made some good money. I had been working for a few months when I met Wanda at a party. We got along well, and I asked her out on a date. She accepted, and it went from there. I have to say, she was beautiful. I kind of laugh at that. Seriously, how many guys ever say that their girlfriend is ugly? Sure, she may not be everyone's type, but to them, she is beautiful. Anyway, I can say that Wanda is beautiful because she always attracts attention whenever we are out, and all of my friends have commented on how they will try to pursue her if we ever break up. Even some of my friends who are attracted to women have mentioned trying to win her over if she becomes available. I eventually asked her to marry me, and she said yes. I should probably mention that Wanda did go to college. I like to joke that she went to college to find a husband. She didn't find one, but she did graduate with a degree in art history, which qualified her for her job as a barista at Starbucks. For those who are confused, a Mrs. Degree refers to a girl who goes to college to postpone adult responsibilities and graduates with a husband to take care of them for the rest of their lives. Yes, I can be arrogant. Deal with it. So we settled into married life. She quit her job a week before the wedding and focused on being a homemaker. Our love life was great, and we bought a nice 3-bedroom house. I was doing well at my job and making good money from my investments. We weren't spending extravagantly, so we were able to save quite a bit of cash. All my bonuses went into our investments, along with maxing out my Roth contributions. I had a goal of retiring before I turned 40 and enjoying life to the fullest. I was skilled at what I did, and my employer rewarded me with generous bonuses and promotions. I was on the fast track up the corporate ladder. A few years after our marriage, I came home from work one Friday evening to find Wanda dressed up and with a huge smile on her face. Hurry up and get ready. We're going out to celebrate tonight. Wow. Did she just say that? I was surprised, but also excited. We had been trying for a while, so it was a wonderful surprise when she revealed that we were finally going to have a baby. I hugged her tightly. We decided to have a fun night on the town to celebrate the good news, even though we knew our celebrations would be toned down during that time and after the baby arrived. The next few months were filled with happiness as we prepared for our new addition to the family. Then we received another surprise a couple months later, twins. We couldn't believe it. 2 little girls were on their way. I couldn't wait to spoil them and be wrapped around their little fingers. Life couldn't get any better. Finally, the day arrived. We rushed to the hospital, and after a few hours, our 2 beautiful and healthy daughters were born. We were overjoyed. They had to stay in the hospital a little longer because they were twins, but everything turned out fine. When we brought them home, both families were there to welcome us. It was a truly happy moment. My mom couldn't take her eyes off them. I think she was just thrilled to have her long-awaited grandchildren. With the arrival of the twins, our lives changed in a big way. I realized that my job was keeping me away from my family too often. I had enough savings, so I decided to start my own business. I had some success with investments and the stock market, so I got the necessary licenses and opened my own investment firm. I started by helping a few friends and family members, and soon, several of my former coworkers transferred their portfolios to me. Within a year, I had a decent client list, and word began to spread about my services. When you reach the top, the only direction to go is down. It was the girls' second birthday party, and we made it a grand celebration. Even though they wouldn't remember it, we wanted to mark the occasion. All our family members were there, and we were all having a great time until, as I was about to leave the bedroom after using the bathroom, I overheard my mom talking to my aunt in the hallway. "I can't believe those blue eyes," Mom said. "Have you talked to Michael about it?" my aunt asked. "Oh no, I don't want him to find out. He's so happy, it would devastate him." I couldn't bear to hear anymore. I quietly went back to the bathroom and locked the door. I needed some time to think. They had to be my girls, right? There must be someone in our families with blue eyes. I had brown eyes and Wanda had hazel eyes. I tried to remember everyone's eye colors, but the only person I could think of with a different eye color was my cousin Mary, who had green eyes. But that came from her father's side, and he wasn't a blood relative. I also couldn't think of anyone in Wanda's family with blue eyes. Eventually, I realized I needed to calm down and rejoin the party. I put on a happy face and tried to act like nothing was wrong. But inside, I was making plans for what I would do later. I examined the girls' features closely that night, searching for any similarities. Some reminded me of Wanda, but there were others that I couldn't recognize. I couldn't find any traits that were definitely from me. The next day, while Wanda took a nap with the girls, I decided to do some research on hiring a private investigator. The suspicion that Wanda had been unfaithful years ago was growing stronger. If she did cheat on me then, could she still be cheating on me now? I needed proof. I ordered a few things to be delivered to my office, making sure to hide the invoices from Wanda. I also started making some financial moves to protect myself in case my suspicions were true. I needed evidence before confronting her. A couple days later, the items I ordered arrived. I had also hired a company called Pro Investigations to gather information from Wanda's devices. I had begun to make preparations financially as well. If she wasn't cheating and the girls truly were mine, these moves wouldn't affect anything. But if my suspicions were correct, I wouldn't let her use my money to support someone else's children. I wanted the proof before making any decisions. 2 weeks later, I received a letter at the office. I locked my door before opening it, and the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. I cried for an hour when I read the contents. Deep down, I already knew the truth, but I had hoped I was wrong. The next day, my private investigator met with me and gave me all the evidence. Wanda had been seeing her blonde, blue-eyed personal trainer and was still seeing him a couple times a week. She even involved the girls, taking them to his apartment so he could spend time with them. The audio recordings confirmed that they all knew who the biological father was. The day after that, I met with a divorce lawyer. I understood that the legal system would likely be against me. but I was determined to protect myself. The lawyer explained how the law worked, but I made it clear that I was ready to fight. He emphasized the importance of taking care of the kids, but I had already made up my mind. I wanted her and her lover to take care of their children without my involvement or financial support. I gave the lawyer my requirements and left. I could tell he was starting to regret taking me on as a client. Little did he know, I instructed the lawyer to prepare the documents, but not to file them until I gave the signal. I may have given him the impression that I wanted to work things out, but in reality, I was ready to move forward. It took 2 months to finalize everything, and Wanda had no idea. Thank goodness for the drama class I took in high school. I had managed to make it seem like I had no income or assets on paper, except for the house and a beat-up pickup truck. The house still had a hefty mortgage, and selling it wouldn't cover the fees. The Lexus I drove was owned by the company, not me personally. I had saved about $10,000 in cash to sustain myself for a few months. Wanda was truly surprised when my cousin Howard and his wife Cheryl showed up that weekend. I explained that Howard and Cheryl had come to see me in my office a few weeks prior and had realized the error of their ways. They sincerely apologized, and I decided to forgive them. Wow, you guys are so gullible. Yes, we made up. It's true that Howard and Cheryl came to see me in my office last week. They did apologize, and I forgave them. However, there are some irrelevant facts that I didn't mention. Coincidences, really. Cheryl's family has some members who bend a few minor laws, and some of them have been involved in barroom brawls. There have been rumors that a few of them may be working for shady businessmen, but it's just gossip. A few days before Howard and Cheryl visited, there was a news story about a personal trainer who was attacked by muggers. They beat him up really badly and stole his belongings. It's sad to see the crime rate increasing in our area. Wanda seemed upset for about a week after the mugging. It's possible that she's worried about the crime rate too. I offered to increase the security at our house, but it didn't seem to make her feel better. On Monday morning, I called my lawyer and asked him to finish the paperwork. I wanted to serve Wanda on Friday afternoon. He tried to convince me to make some changes, but I was firm in my decision. On Tuesday, I reviewed and signed the forms with my lawyer. He warned me again, but I decided to listen to his advice. I gave Wanda the house and the investments, but I made it clear that I wouldn't pay for anything else. I had already moved my belongings out of the garage and stored them in different places. Friday morning arrived, and I went to work as usual. I had already moved my truck to the office earlier. I parked my car, went to the bank, and emptied all the accounts. I also cleaned out the safety deposit box. Then, I drove to the ranch and put all the cash and contents of the box with my other possessions. I didn't want to risk her finding a new bank account or tracing a wire transfer. Plus, I might need the cash later. You might be wondering why I trusted Howard and Cheryl. The mortgage on their ranch was held by an offshore company with unclear ownership. Plus, they're still family, and you don't mess with family in our clan. The rest of the family takes it personally. We were all happy when Howard and I reconciled. I returned home and noticed that Wanda's car was still at the mall. I quickly packed up the rest of my belongings and threw them into the truck. I didn't even bother closing the garage or front door. As I was leaving, Wanda called, but I didn't answer. I saw on the GPS that she was on her way home. I just laughed and left. I arrived at my new apartment and settled in. A little while later, my new phone rang. It was someone who informed me that she had been served. I received the video shortly after. She was shocked when she saw it. Unfortunately, the video cut off after she dropped to the floor. I would have liked to see her reaction when she read the divorce petition and learned about the evidence against her. After that, things moved slowly. She called my old office several times and even showed up in person. She harassed Howard too. Restraining orders were filed. 2 weeks later, my lawyer contacted her to find out who her lawyer was. She hadn't hired one yet and was running out of money. She started asking her parents for support while I relaxed and waited. I didn't start any projects because I wanted to be unavailable for a while and didn't want her to take anything from me. Finally, she got a lawyer, and meetings were scheduled. I didn't attend but gave my lawyer instructions. My position was clear, not a penny more. Temperatures flared at the meetings, and it eventually went to arbitration. It didn't go well. In court, the judge used the account numbers from a couple of months ago to determine the financial aspects. They couldn't access the money as I had transferred it to different banks and accounts. The judge wasn't pleased, but I knew they couldn't trace it easily. So don't leave comments calling me stupid for thinking I could convince them that there was no money. I knew they could see the past account balances. I was prepared for that. I transferred the money around, and it would take a long time and lots of money to track it down. By that time, I would be long gone. So here I was back in front of the angry woman. It had been 60 days into my 90-day stay as a guest of the county. These short-term sentences were done in the county jail, not state prison. So have you learned your lesson yet? She sneered. You mean the lesson about not marrying a cheating jerk? I learned that one long before I was ever in your court. I was referring to your attitude in my court. The vein on her forehead was beginning to pop. I didn't think that was too good for her blood pressure. Can't say that I find anything wrong with my attitude while I was being treated unfairly in front of a bunch of biased people. I was seriously beginning to worry about her health. Her blood pressure must be high during her doctor's visits. You are aware that I can extend your stay in jail, aren't you? And if that's the way you intend to be, I'm adding another 30 days. Now, I brought you here today to discuss why you haven't made your first 2 child support or maintenance payments to your ex-wife. And where is your lawyer? Odd. I was under the mistaken impression that you needed to be really smart to be a judge. Thank you for correcting me on that. Perhaps I can explain it to you so you can understand it. Sorry if it's still over your head, but the simplest I can go is so a 5th grader can comprehend it. Do try to keep up. I really was becoming concerned about her bench catching on fire from the anger she was expressing at that point. I was starting to think that she actually didn't like me. I am in jail. I have no access to any money. Since I have no access to any money, I am unable to send any money. Since it was your fault that I am here, perhaps you can explain why you are the reason that my ex-wife can't get the money that you are trying to take from me to give to her. Now, did you get all that, or do I need to explain it to you slower so? I was escorted back to my cell for another 90 days. 30 from my original sentence, 30 from her first tirade, and another 30 that I managed to catch at the end. To be honest, it really wasn't that bad. Sure. The food was disgusting, but I still ate it. I had a nice bed to sleep in and lots of free time to relax. I made good use of the weights and exercise machines. I didn't have many problems in there. First off, it didn't take too long for my courtroom antics to become common knowledge inside the jail. That made me a few friends. Second, did I mention that Cheryl's family has a few connections that could be of help to someone on the inside? In fact, there was only one problem. It came from one of Wanda's less intelligent cousins. He had the crazy idea that he could get arrested for something small, get sent to the jail for a week or so, and use that time to teach me a lesson. First off, literally, the entire jail population knew exactly who he was before he even set foot inside the compound. From there, it didn't take much brain power to figure out what he was up to. He was spotted halfway across the yard. Unfortunately, one of the inmates bumped into him as he was trying to catch an errant pass while tossing a football back and forth. I'm sure the elbow to his gut was purely accidental. Once he was able to stand up and brush himself off, he foolishly continued on his quest. After another 20 feet, he got hit in the side of his head by a basketball. The guy who made the bad pass apologized a lot. The elbow to the chin while he was being helped up was completely accidental. After shaking his head to clear the cobwebs, he again began his trek in my direction. There were 2 more incidents before he finally arrived at his destination. Since my back was turned, he thought that a surprise punch would be a good idea. Unfortunately, I was far from clueless. Before he even had time to bring his fist back, I got the signal, spun around, and drove my foot into his groin as hard as I could. It was a clear 65-yard field goal. Since his string of misfortunes seemed to finally catch up with him, he was taken to the infirmary. 2 days later, he refused to come out to the yard to exercise. He spent as much time as he could in his cell until he was released. I'm back before the stern judge. Are you ready to apologize? For your rude outbursts in this courtroom. Really don't know what you were talking about. Whatever. Perhaps you can at least keep a civil tongue in your head and not extend your stay. So I take it that another judge is taking over then? You are pushing my patience. Are you telling me that I should start stomping my feet now? I should probably see if they have a suggestion box around somewhere. I need to suggest that they have EMTs posted in the courtroom in case she actually has a stroke. Again, you have not paid a single child support or maintenance payment yet. You have also failed to pay the mortgage on the house or any of the utilities as I ordered. I thought that we went through this last time. I can't pay anything as long as I'm stuck here in jail. Second, since you put me in jail, I can't work and make any money to pay anything. Third, they aren't my kids, so I don't know why I would pay anything for them. Fourth, my ex-wife is a cheating liar, and I don't think I should have to pay for her to have a good life on my dime. If she wants to go out and have fun, she should get a job and pay for her own social life. Maybe she can find a way to make money out of it and support herself that way. And finally, you gave her half the business. She should have plenty of money from that. Your Honor, Wanda's lawyer piped up. We have been unable to take possession of my client's part of the business. It seems that Mr. Nielsen sold his company to an overseas company approximately 2 months before he filed for divorce. At this time, we haven't even been able to determine who the actual owners are in order to contact them about the court order. Suddenly, a rather attractive woman stood up and asked to approach. Your Honor, Ende Gao. I represent the board of directors for the firm that purchased the business in question. I have a motion here to dismiss the ruling giving Mrs. Nielsen any part of a business formerly owned by her ex-husband. It is highly irregular to award one party any ownership of a business that is not involved in the court case in question. Since the purchase was completed prior to the divorce being filed, this company has no connection to this case. Therefore, we reject any claim of ownership in said business by Mrs. Nielsen. But what about the money from the sale? Blind Wanda. The transfer of ownership and payments were made overseas. I am not aware of that information, but my understanding is that the money from the purchase has never been transferred to US territory and is therefore not subject to US laws. I'm afraid that you will have to take any claim on that money up with your ex-husband. That may need to take place in whichever country the money is located in. What country is that? My ex's lawyer asked. The original transfer of funds was in Belgium, but my understanding is that the money was transferred somewhere else shortly after the sale. I have no idea where it was transferred to. The young woman replied. Your Honor. My ex's lawyer spoke up again. My client is desperate right now. The house is going into foreclosure because the mortgage hasn't been paid in 3 months. The utilities are about to be cut off. My client's parents were able to help a bit when this first began, but it is getting to be too much for them. My client has found a job, but it is waitressing at a local diner. It doesn't pay nearly enough to maintain the house. Mr. Nielsen, I'm afraid you have 1 week to bring all the payments up to date. Sure, absolutely. Here, let me find a way to magically produce the money. Oops, turns out I don't have any. Unfortunately, I'm unable to comply because I'm currently in jail. I don't have access to any money, and I can't work either. I keep trying to explain that I'm broke, but you refuse to believe me. Please understand that I can't fulfill your demands when I have no means to do so. I explained. Mr. Nielsen, your lawyer can help you access your accounts and transfer the funds to your ex-wife. Well, I don't have a lawyer, and even if I did, I don't have any accounts to transfer funds from. I've been trying to tell you that I lost all my money from some bad investments. There are no hidden accounts or secret funds. If you think otherwise, please show me the account information where you believe I'm hiding money. What happened to all the money from your checking account, savings account, and investments then? As I mentioned before, those investments turned out to be a disaster. I had to sell my company to cover the expenses, so there's no money left. Do you actually expect the court to believe that? I really don't care if you believe me or not. If you think I'm lying, then show me the evidence of these hidden accounts. What I believe is that she took all the money while pursuing other relationships. That doesn't even make sense, exclaimed her lawyer. It makes as much sense as keeping me in jail, where I can't fulfill your orders and constantly demanding payments that are impossible for me to make. I replied. Mr. Nielsen, are you aware that I can keep you in jail until you pay? The judge warned. I simply looked at her with disbelief. All right, go ahead and keep me locked up where I can't comply with your orders. It's a logical decision. 3 months later, the house was foreclosed on. Wanda had to give up her luxury car, and she had moved in with her parents because she couldn't afford an apartment. She was working part-time at a diner and desperately asking the judge to release me so I could make some payments. Loverboy had been discharged from the hospital and was in rehabilitation. He was struggling to clear up his financial situation, and his low credit rating prevented him from opening new credit cards. His car insurance only covered a small portion of his medical bills, so it would take him years to pay them off. In the meantime, I finally managed to hire a lawyer who had negotiated my release from jail under the condition that I find a job and begin making payments. I had to surrender my passport as a precaution, as they suspected I might have money hidden outside the country. I started working at a local Taco Bell and temporarily stayed at Howard and Cheryl's ranch. Someone was monitoring my every move, though they never discovered most of the cash I had hidden. For the next 3 months, Wanda used a court order to garnish my wages from Taco Bell. Since I was earning minimum wage, she didn't receive much. However, during this time, I made my final preparations. Howard had emptied my apartment, and my extended family helped discreetly move packages from the ranch. These packages were later shipped away after being repackaged. I spent my time either working or at home, not leaving the premises. Wanda's constant visits to the restaurant eventually led to Taco Bell obtaining a restraining order against her. Although they could have fired me, a small bribe to the manager convinced her to let me keep my job. Whenever I needed to meet my lawyer, she would come to the ranch. She was actually the lawyer representing the new owners of my former company during the court proceedings, and I later hired her. She was highly skilled and had a determined personality. As for any unethical relationship between us, well, lawyers don't always follow strict moral codes, do they? Now, let's talk about the money. Yes, I did sell my company, and no, I didn't sell it to myself. I didn't want to give Wanda any chance to seize any part of the firm, so I got rid of it completely. Plus, I wanted the cash. Since the sale occurred overseas and the money was never brought into the United States jurisdiction, it wasn't subject to us laws. The only way Wanda could touch it was if I transferred the funds to a U.S. bank, which I was careful not to do. I also had additional funds from my investments, totaling around $10 million. I had some cash on hand as well, amounting to approximately $200,000. I had used some of that money for my plans, but I still had about $150,000 remaining. However, I wasn't going to be carrying any cash with me. It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon when we had another barbecue with our extended family at the ranch. All the arrangements were made, and the party was a great success. I even helped Howard with the grilling, and my lawyer, Julia, was there too. Later that evening, one of Cheryl's uncles approached me and expressed his gratitude. He handed me an envelope, which I allowed Julia to keep in her briefcase. As the night drew to a close, I made an important announcement. I declared that Howard and Cheryl now owned the ranch mortgage-free, thanks to the lien being paid off. This revelation sparked a huge celebration, and we had an amazing time. Late that night, the guests started to leave, including Julia, who had to catch a flight early the next morning. She left in a group of cars, and interestingly, her flight was scheduled from an airport in a neighboring state. She had her luggage in her leased car from the start, never stopping at her rented apartment. Instead, she went directly to the airport. No one noticed the man sneaking out of the back of her car in the parking garage, and no one paid attention to the guy silently following her from a distance as they walked to the international terminal. Since I had surrendered my passport to the court, I was unable to leave the U.S. Mitchell Nelson, using a new passport, blended in seamlessly beside Julia as they flew first class to Mexico City. Once there, Julia mysteriously disappeared, and Jamie Nelson joined me for our connecting flight to Ecuador. 2 days later, Greg and Samantha Cooper arrived at their beautiful home on the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica. 2 weeks after the barbecue, a bench warrant was issued for Michael Nielsen. I hadn't shown up for work 2 days after the party and was subsequently fired for my absence. No payments were made to my ex-wife since then. Howard and Cheryl were summoned to court, but with the assistance of their lawyer, they successfully proved that they had no responsibility towards me. They argued that I was merely a renter and disappeared one day. In fact, they even filed a suit against me for back rent. Though no one truly believed them, there was no evidence to prove otherwise. Over the next several years, Greg Cooper operated a small charter fishing boat. His wife, Samantha, ran their small restaurant. They were well off in the small village. Their house was one of the larger ones with several nice amenities. They occasionally had guests visit for periods of time. Harold and Cheryl were there often, as well as other family members. It was a simple yet pleasant life for both Greg and Sam. They loved each other fully. They spent most evenings entertaining guests in the restaurant or in their luxurious house. Being both wealthy and kind to everyone, they were quickly accepted into the small community. Whenever there was a need in the community, they donated generously. It should be noted that Greg continually invested in the stock markets whenever he was not on his boat or in the restaurant. He even set up accounts for some of the locals and helped them with their finances. It was 17 years after the last get-together that Michael and Julia had attended at the ranch. Michael Cooper was taking a break with his younger sister Julia at the restaurant where they worked helping out their parents. Michael was 17 years old, and Julia had just turned 16. They were talking about plans for the weekend when two slightly older blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls walked in. There was something slightly familiar about them. The girls looked around, then focused on the siblings. In matching steps, the identical pair confidently approached them. "Hello," the girl on the right started. "Would you please tell the owners of this place that we are here to see a Michael Nielsen and a Julia Davis?" "Well, I can let my parents know that, but I assure you that they have no idea who those people are. Our parents are the owners, and I've never heard them mention those names. I've been around this place my whole life, and I can guarantee that there has never been a Michael Nielsen or Julia Davis here, unless they were tourists eating here once or twice." Michael replied. "Who should I tell them?" is asking. The twins glanced at each other briefly, then the one on the left spoke. "Tell them that it is Kayla and Kathy Nielsen, Michael's daughters and your half-sisters. First off, our parents are Greg and Samantha Olsen, not Michael Nielsen and Julia Davis. Second, what makes you think that we are even remotely related?" I asked. "Yes, we know what names they go by now. It took a lot of effort and some money to find out that information. And we know that we are related because you, Michael, look exactly like your father did in pictures from 20 years ago. And Julia resembles her mother from the same time. Although we're not biologically related, the courts have ruled that your father is legally our father too." I had just entered the back of the restaurant carrying a couple of tuna that we would be offering as the catch of the day. Sam had met me at the doorway with a hug. Just as I placed the fish on the counter to start cutting them up, Michael came through the door. "Hey, Dad. There are two blonde girls that just came into the restaurant. They're looking for a Michael Nielsen and a Julia Davis. They say they're your daughters." Well, I was definitely surprised. We weren't exactly secretive about our identities when we left, but I thought we were well hidden by the time we came here. Well, I guess I should go talk to them. There wasn't much of a threat. I'm pretty sure that enough time has passed for any wrongdoing I may have done. Besides, it wouldn't hurt to find out what kind of trouble I might face if they harbored any ill will towards me. With that thought in mind, I looked over at Sam Julia and shrugged before turning and walking towards the dining area of the restaurant. I immediately noticed the twins. They looked almost exactly like their mother when she was their age. Sam Julia followed me as I made my way over to the table where they were talking to my daughter. Instructing the two kids to take care of the few customers in the dining room, Sam and I sat down across from the twins. At the very least, it would be an interesting conversation. "Hello, Dad," the one on the left greeted. "Nice to finally meet you. Hello, Kayla and Kathy." "I'm not sure which one is which, but since you're here, you should probably know why I'm not technically your father," I replied. "Oh yes, we are fully aware. Thanks to some legal documents, we were able to get all of the records from your various legal proceedings. Obviously, Mom wasn't really happy about that, but once we turned 18, we were able to obtain them without needing her consent." "Okay, so you know the whole story, and it seems like you understand my perspective on it. So why did you go through so much trouble and expense to find me and come all the way here to see me? What's the reason behind this?" "Oh, it's quite simple, actually. We're here to negotiate with you for your freedom. Technically, you still owe a significant amount of child support and alimony to our mom. That means you could be arrested if you ever go to a country with an extradition treaty with the US. Now, we all know that there is an extradition treaty between Costa Rica and the US, but it would be more trouble than it's worth in your case. But if you were ever to enter the US, you could easily be arrested." Kayla explained. "Here's what we propose," Kathy added. "We want to go to college. Our grades are good enough for some scholarships, but we still need money to cover the remaining costs and living expenses. If you financially support us for the rest of it, we will ask the court to release you from the rest of your obligations. What about your mother? I'm not sure she would be so willing to give up all the money she's owed. Don't worry about that. If you agree to our proposal, she won't be able to cause any trouble. In fact, she won't even be in the US to fight for anything." I suddenly had a bad feeling about this. I dreaded asking my next question. I just knew I wasn't going to like the answer. So where will she be?" I didn't like the smirks that Kayla and Kathy got at that. "Oh, she will be in Costa Rica managing this cute little restaurant on the coast, so the owners have plenty of time to visit relatives and enjoy their lives." Gosh, please tell me that she isn't waiting right outside." I begged. "You're in luck." I can honestly tell you that she isn't right outside, Kayla answered. Just as I was about to sigh in relief, I heard a voice behind me. Hello, Michael. Kathy crushed my relief. Nope, she is inside right behind you. I turned around and faced the one person on this planet that I never wanted to see. Hello, Wanda. It was 4 years later. Julie and I were sitting in the stands watching Kayla and Kathy graduate from the University of Arizona. Michael Jr. and JJ Julie Jr. were sitting beside us. Sitting beside me on the opposite side from Julie was Wanda. We had given her vacation time from running our restaurant so she could come with us to watch her daughters graduate. Yes, I paid for their education. I was wealthy and I could easily afford it. Besides, I had been getting pretty tired of having to sneak into the country to see my relatives. Wanda realized that she was never going to get anything from me, so she decided that living nice in Costa Rica was a lot better than struggling in the US. She wasn't wealthy, but we paid her a decent salary. I also began helping her invest. She even managed to find a really nice guy she ended up marrying. Oh, and the dishonorable Judge Marie Matthews? I actually laughed so much. A few years after I had made my escape to Costa Rica, Judge Matthews' wife, of course that mean and nasty person was a lesbian, was caught cheating on her. The judge had adopted her wife's 3 kids when they got married. Since they were married, Judge Matthews was stuck paying child support, maintenance, as well as maintaining house payments for her now ex-wife. To add to the humiliation, her ex-wife quickly moved her boyfriend into the house and continued to spend time with him. Whenever they were seen out in public, they acted like a typical married couple, except they never officially got married. I did hear a rumor that they finally set a wedding date. It will be a week after their youngest child graduates from college. Judge Matthews is required to pay child support and maintenance until the child graduates from college, or until her ex-wife remarries. Odd timing on the marriage. It will be exactly 1 week after all of Judge Matthews' financial obligations to her ex-wife are satisfied.